This week on the S.J. Childs Show, I sit down with Leslie Paramore. She's an actress, an author of a children's book called Anything Possible, Anything Goes. Her and her husband have founded a company and do YouTube videos for children. Go check it out today. And go follow me and get notifications for all my upcoming episodes. Enjoy! Hi, and welcome to the S.J. Childs Show. I'm your host, S.J. Childs, and today I have a guest that is you are here in Utah, right? I
Yes.
should have said that. I thought so. With me, we are obviously via Zoom, but I'm so lucky and glad to have her here today. She is a fellow author, children's book author, and I'm really looking forward to bringing this information and the book and really supporting and promoting this for her today. So thank you so much for being here today, Leslie. Or do I call you by the Sparkler Princess?
Either or will work because, there are adults that call me princess too. So
I love that. Okay, that sounds fantastic. Well, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and tell us about why you're here.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on your show.
Thank you.
I certainly appreciate it. And I appreciate the work that you're doing as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
That is amazing. I've always had a heart for children as well. And that's what's kind of led me into doing some of the things that I do. And let me clarify the whole Sparkler Princess thing, because that might throw a few people off as far as what that means. The Sparkler Princess is a real life character, and she and her feathered friend Bluey help children in the empowerment of their minds and their hearts. And we do that through videos and books and lots of different ways. We've done personal appearances. We've done Barnes & Noble book signings. We've done charity events. I've gone into women's shelters. And I have a story I want to share with you about that. But ever since I was a child, I was kind of connected to children. Isn't that funny? I would line children up older than myself, playing the role of teacher. It's as if I was predestined to do that.
That's neat. I love that. I love when we totally off topic of but the same topic. Isn't that how funny how that happens? But when I was a child, I would always when we would go camping, I would always massage all the adults in the circle. And I became a massage therapist about 20 years ago and finally fulfilled my destiny of doing the same thing. I think that it's just so interesting that we predestine ourselves with our interests as children, and those of us lucky enough to be able to fulfill those afterwards.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because I used to play for hours with Play-Doh or clay.
Yeah.
And I would make little people, right? Little students with the chairs, and I would play teacher. But here's what's interesting. You know how if you've ever played with clay, it's really hard at first. And then you have to kind of warm it up with your hands in order to mold it and shape it into something. And so I actually became a massage therapist too.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe I was predestined to do that as well, because I started molding and shaping people at such a young age.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We're going to have a whole other episode just about that. That's really fantastic. I love that we share that same interest. And I think it really has a lot to say for the amount of compassion that we hold for the community. So, yay.
High five.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Tell us about what really got you started on the children's book. Where did that come in?
That is a very good question. So as a child, I really struggled in school. In first grade, I was placed in a reading group called the Purple Turtle.
Mm.
That's an interesting title, isn't it? Somehow on a conscious, subconscious level, I knew that meant I was a slow reader.
Oh, dang it.
Yeah. So on an emotional, mental level, I remember thinking as a child, I'm going to work really hard to get out of this group, because there was just a handful of us.
Mm.
There's maybe 3 or 4 children, and I was one of them in this group. And I worked so hard to get out of this group. And I don't know how many months it took me. But finally, the teacher said, I can tell you've been working really hard. I think we can put you to the next level. And of course, those other children got left behind in the Purple Turtle group. And I was just so relieved to have stepped it up a notch. And so all through my school years, I actually really struggled in school. I had to study really hard to get good grades. And here's what's really interesting. I never really liked English. And I disliked reading. I really and truly disliked reading. I never understood Macbeth or Shakespeare or any of those older things. And the English language just seemed to be very challenging for me as far as reading and whatnot. So not my favorite subject. And so it came to be quite surprising that I ended up becoming an author. And I started authoring in my 20s.
Okay.
And the way that happened, it didn't start with children's books. I was in a store and I picked up this greeting card because I was looking for a card for someone. And I read the card and I thought, I could write this. I could write, so I thought, I looked on the back of the card and it said poetry welcome. So I began writing greeting cards in my 20s.
Wow.
And that was where my writing career started. And so
cool.
Somewhere out there in the big wide world of greeting cards, I have 150 greeting cards.
Oh my heavens.
Out there in the publishing world.
That's so cool.
And that's how my writing career got started. So it's kind of an interesting way.
Yeah.
And my background's early childhood education. And so I ran and operated a preschool for 9 years. And during that time, of course, I would tell stories to the kids and write poems and sing with them with my guitar. And then I just started feeling like I wanted to write children's stories and maybe see about publishing children's stories. And well, in the real greeting card world, you get used to getting rejection letters. Especially if you're going with traditional publishing.
Yeah.
And but I never gave up. I kept writing and writing and writing, and I published lots of things for adults, to support them. And then let me think. A few years ago, I was doing some research on the internet, and I saw that this Korean publisher that they were looking for writers, and just felt impressed that I was supposed to be writing for this publisher. And so if you've heard of ESL, which is English as a Second Language, it's to help children learn to speak, read, and write English. And so I thought, I'm going to submit some of my things to them, my writings. And I heard back within probably a week, and they said that they wanted to hire me.
Wow.
And then a year later, another Korean publisher contacted me and said, I've read some of your stuff. I love it. Would you write for our company?
Oh my gosh.
So I have over 70 children's books published in the Korean educational system.
Oh my goodness.
And I know I'm surprised too.
It's so much more than I had even anticipated. It blows me away. I'm so excited.
But what's really exciting was the day that I found out, I was doing a YouTube search, and I found out that some of my stories have been published into TV shows and cartoons over there.
Oh my goodness.
So apparently I'm famous in Korea.
Hey.
But not
We're working our way
into it. I might have to move to Korea.
Yeah. Right? I know. It sounds like I need to check out some publishers from there.
Yeah, it's very gratifying. Actually children on YouTube reading my stories from Korea, and it just touches my heart. Children all over the world. I don't care what culture, belief systems, or whatever. My heart's just really committed to children and empowering them in whatever way that I can do that. And even if it means dressing up in a princess costume, I'll even do that.
Love it.
So, so that started. And then the book that I have published here for children, Anything's Possible, Anything Goes, I was just feeling these words come to me this one day. And they came in pieces. And I suppose you could say it felt like just, some higher force just gave it to me.
Got the download.
What we would call a download. Yes, for sure. And, I wrote this out, and then I was frantically looking for a possible illustrator. And my best friend, Leela, her brother just happened to come over, and he saw these drawings I had done on our feathered friends, which, that's a whole other story. Drawings on this spinning wheel. And he said, Leslie, did you draw those? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, Leslie, you need to illustrate your own book. And I'm like, I'm not an artist. He's like, yes, you are. You are an artist. And so I took an iPad. My husband had bought me this stylus for iPads. I'd never really drawn before. I didn't even know I could draw a stick figure.
Yeah.
And I began to draw the pictures to go with the story. So I ended up being the illustrator I was looking for.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's amazing. And plus that the story is right there in your mind's eye. So you're really able to capture exactly what you are looking for.
Right. And, it's a very, very, the illustrations are very childlike. They're very simple.
Love it.
They're something that a child would be able to look at and just, it will draw them in.
Yeah.
And, so that's the long version of how I ended up.
I love it.
To writing for children.
Yeah. And show us the book. You have it right there. Let's take a look.
Book.
Yes. Oh, so cute. That's fantastic.
So I'm not sure if you had a chance to read it.
Yeah, tell us about it.
But the story, I'll just show you one of the inside pictures here.
Oh, that's fantastic. You did an incredible job.
Thank you. Thank you. The story, anything's possible, anything goes. I believe that our thoughts have power, and our words have power, and our actions have power. And so when we think about things, that holds an energy, I guess you could say, or a frequency that is sent out there to the grand universe. And what I say to people is everyone has an energetic boomerang. And whatever energy you put on there is going to what?
Come right back.
Come right back to you. And so I felt it important, and that these are concepts I teach to adults, but I felt it important that children know that their thoughts, their words, and their actions have power, and that we're all here to create the life that we wish to live. And so what better time to teach when our children are young? Because a lot of people go through life thinking that life happens to them, not for them.
Right.
And so to teach children that, you're a powerful little creator. And, as you get your heart and your mind in alignment with one another, you can create whatever it is that you would like to create in your life.
That's beautiful.
And so that's what's called anything's possible, anything goes.
I love that. And it's such a great message for kids. I know that I personally teach my children that way and try to teach my friends and family and other people the same course of action because I see the results. I see the success in my younger children. And I kind of always say my oldest, bless her heart, I learned my parenting lessons from her, and I learned what not to do, right? I learned the right or better ways, when we know we can do better. And so I think those are such powerful messages for kids to have. And parents don't often give their kids enough credit to have that responsibility of their words and their actions.
Right.
Yeah.
That children are the true masters of the heart.
Oh, I love that.
And children are often our greatest teachers.
That is certainly true.
I feel, especially the children coming to the planet today, they seem to be coming with their gifts fully intact and much more aware, much more. And
we have a 10-year-old, and I've always said, she's like an old soul. She's like a grandma in this little 5-year-old body that likes to sew and knit and
Oh
like,
my
oh,
goodness.
I don't even know how to sew. Like how did she learn these skills? But and now it's just like every day, her emotional intelligence impresses me, and it is so inspiring to me. And I see this little person who, like, for an example, feels bad if she eats something and then won't eat it again. Like, how many adults are guilty of always eating it again? And forgetting the feeling, or just not paying attention to it because we want to do that. She's very alert in her thinking of those things, and is very disciplined in, no, that made me feel bad, not doing that again. She's like, wise child. Teach me the ways, right?
That is incredible.
Yeah.
So amazing. She sounds like a very special child.
I think so. Thank you so much. In fact, it's so great. She actually, there's so many things that have aligned in this conversation, and it's so funny that they have in so many strange, interesting ways. Purple turtle. Now, how would you or I have ever known that would be something that you and I would somehow have in common, but in a totally different way? When our son was 2, he started writing. And he was reading at 1 and he was writing at 2, and purple turtle were the 2 words he wrote, the very first, like his very first words written.
Goodness.
Was purple turtle.
I have my head down here because I am looking for a specific picture that I was told to put in the book.
Yeah.
And let's see here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. For, people that are listening in audio, I'm sorry that you can't see the pictures, but please do go check out, anything, anything goes, anything is possible. Anything. Yeah. Okay.
It's possible. Anything goes.
Wonderful.
I will find the picture.
Yeah.
Let me recite the chorus.
Yes.
You're the weaver of words. And I'll say this to your 5-year-old inner child, Sarah.
Oh, I love that.
You're the weaver of words. You're the master of dreams. You're the painter of hearts, her soul would seem. That anything's possible, anything goes. When you set your mind to it, everything flows.
Oh, that's beautiful. And such truer words hadn't ever been spoken, right? That's so true. And when we empower children to have independence, the growth and confidence that comes in that is going to help shape our society to be a better place for not only those families, but for their families and generations to come. And I just think that more and more as a society, we are embracing the, treat things with kindness rather than punishment, and kind of looking at things in a new light, I hope, and for generations to come.
Right. Absolutely. I'm trying to find the purple turtle, but the purple turtle's hiding. So I just gave the secret away. There's a purple turtle in the book.
Great.
And, the purple turtle was really significant, and it taught my own inner child, that anything's possible, anything goes. Because I had inner doubt about, illustrating the book. And I think even as adults, we have those inner doubts.
Yeah.
Right? We have those inner doubts. But what I've learned is that in our lifetime, especially as adults, when we have those doubts creep up or those fears creep up, it's often when we face those doubts or fears that we find out that's where our strengths are.
Isn't that the truth?
I struggled with English. I became an author.
Yeah.
I was camera shy, very camera shy. I did not like having my picture taken. I did not like being videoed. And guess what?
Hello.
And that
I
spent
see
a
you,
lot of
right?
time in the studio
Yeah.
being, creating these videos for children.
Yeah.
And so it's been a real growing process for me as well.
Yeah. I
You
think,
know, as children grow up, and of course you know this. I mean, children are pure.
mhm.
We just love them, and their hearts are open, and their minds are open. They love unconditionally, and as they grow up, they have experiences. Maybe the first time they had fear, or the first time they had doubt. These different things that we come up against in the world, and the whole idea of my mission, what I feel is my mission, is to support children and helping them to keep their minds and their hearts open
Mhm.
as they move into adulthood. Because what a lot of adults do is they shield their hearts the
Mm.
first time they've been hurt.
Yes.
They put shields over and layers and layers and layers of
Yeah.
these just kind of closing off that child heart, right?
Mm.
And then they become adults, and that's kind of sad to me.
Yeah. Oh, no, I can see how me and my husband went through that phase of, really learning how to be open and teaching our children how to be open and letting go of those old ideas or generational stigmas that, no, if you have depression, keep it quiet. If you have a eating disorder, keep it quiet. Like nobody knows about anything, right? And hush, hush, hush. And now today we're like, no, that's not okay. Like, let's talk about it. Let's communicate. Let's face our fears and help them become, our strengths. And oftentimes I love to, when parents in my autism group sometimes say, oh, well, how can I, for example, help my child that really struggles with math? Like, how can I help them to get a better understanding or find something that they'll engage in? And I oftentimes say, what are their interests? Do they like video games? Most likely. you know, um, when my daughter was needing to learn multiplication tables, I thought, well, I could let her build them in Minecraft. She could build by block by block by block. That's something that she has a highly interested in, that she engages in. And now she's taking learning with her and she's engaging, and it's all encircling and all encompassing. And it just, you take the strengths and you build the weaknesses or the challenges up with those strengths.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Children learn best through play.
Yeah.
And when I went
Exactly.
to preschool, it was all about play,
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned the times tables, because as a kid, I really struggled with times tables. And then
Yeah.
one day, I don't know, this little voice inside me said,
Mm,
sing them.
yeah.
And singing the times tables. And that was the way I learned them, because
Yeah.
I would study them, bring them to my mom. She would quiz me and I would forget them by the time I got from point A to point B, which was my mom. And and then I just started singing them.
yeah.
So then in time to do the test, I had music going through my head,
And
singing the
that's so
song,
powerful. Yeah.
so that I could, do the test. Now, obviously, I don't need to sing them anymore, but that's how I learned them. And
yeah.
yeah, it's just amazing. Children learn best through, I love what you did with your children, giving them something that they're interested in to, and compiling that with what they need to learn
Yeah.
is awesome. That's perfect.
Yeah. With our son, we got really lucky that he is an over educator. Like all he wants to do. I shouldn't say that. He does enjoy playing some like Sonic video games and things, but for the most part, he's always just filling his mind with information and information. And we do know that he has a photographic memory. And so for him, it's a little bit different absorbing all of this information. But we still see like where his struggles are in social communication
Wow.
and teaching a whole nother way of living and life skills. And so it really opens your mind up to, number one, the capacity that children, their brains and their emotions can have, especially seeing a baby reading at 1 year old and realizing, yeah. And there was a program called the Your Baby Could Read program. You probably remember the commercials for that. But I would just put the DVDs in and the little flashcards, and by the age of 1, he was raising his hand and clapping. And what I didn't know is that he was nonverbal and that he wasn't going to talk, and that I wasn't going to hear him say mom or dad or I love you. And it wasn't until he was nearly 4, when his sister, 2 years younger than him, had already been talking for 2 years. She'd already said everything under the sun. And so it's such perspective to have a nonverbal child and communicate with them, and then see this verbal child and really appreciate the nonverbal communications. You start to just appreciate and be so much more patient than I ever could have imagined being. Yeah.
Body language is very powerful as
Isn't
far
that?
as communication. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's another parallel we have, Sarah.
Yeah.
We went to Utah 11 years ago. I ended up teaching at a school for children with autism for a couple of years.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And so I a lot one-on-one with some of these beautiful children.
Yes.
And I remember one particular day, there's this one little fellow, he was struggling. And I just felt like he needed to get outside. Mm-hmm. And we had the freedom to do that. Oh, and so nice. We got outside and I put him on the swing and I was pushing the swing, and he was verbal. And he said the most profound thing to me. He said, life is kind of like a play, isn't it? And I said, yeah. Yeah. And he said, and we're all just playing dress up. And I said, you're absolutely right.
And that's how so many of them move through the world. Mm-hmm. And especially now we're learning so much more about female neurodiversity and how easily, coming from a child who was diagnosed at 16 months, our son, and watching him for a decade, and then turning around and getting a diagnosis for his little sister that's 10. And now I'm like, wait a second. I've still been looking at autism this entire time, but what does that look like? How different is that? Because here, she was verbal. She was, as soon as she could fit her foot into a shoe, she loved every shoe that existed in the world. She wanted to try on every type of shoe. But those type of interests don't spark you as, oh, I wonder if this is an autistic over interest or that type of thing. She's a girl. She loves shoes. She loves clothes and changing clothes. Like it's something that goes overlooked and is completely, missed. And it's so interesting now that I can look at it with such a different lens of perspective to see, wow, like like you said, so much profound, amazing, but also so much masking. So you kind of see, okay, this is where my child feels like they have to mask themselves in these kind of conversations or in these social circles. And you start to see and really have to help them navigate how to move in and out of those, situations. So that's incredible that he'd say that.
I believe personally, okay, I was with these children and I just felt like people had it backwards.
They're the most insightful, aren't they?
I thought, we're not here to teach these children. They're here to teach us. And that's honestly how I felt, being in their presence, And it's like, I think they're such highly evolved souls.
Yeah.
that,
Agreed.
maybe part of the time they're not in their body and they seem to be somewhere else. Who knows what type of work they're doing on a soul level?
Yes, exactly.
And I've always felt very strongly about that they are highly evolved souls.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think it's incredible. And it's exciting because, I have so many of them in my house. It makes me feel so good to be able to spend this existence with them and hopefully shape their lives in a meaningful way for them.
Yes, absolutely. I wish we could get away from labels in this world.
Yeah.
So quick to put labels on people. And I just think that every soul is beautiful and every soul has a purpose here. And labels, I think, limit.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. There's such a fine line. I completely agree because being in a parent world and being in, the autism community as well, I see the importance of a diagnosis for services and for support and things like that. At the same time, I completely agree with you in that if the world could see the support given as a positive thing or, and rather than a stigma or a label. And if they could just see it correctly, it would be so much easier to not feel like we had to put up a fight for our kids or for, for them to be seen as, and it's, so I think that is such an interesting, really fine line too, because then I have, adult autistics that, when I talk with them and they say, well, I want to be treated like I don't have a disability, yet sometimes they still need those services. So it's so sensitive to, and I think that's the really important part too, is like you said, if we can just start realizing that together we are all human and humanity comes in so much diversity, and it doesn't have to be looked upon negatively or afraid. People should be embracing that.
And that was absolutely my point as far as the labels, because when we tend to put labels on children or adults or whatever, it limits them, because we talked earlier about our thoughts, right? And so how do our thoughts affect those around us, right? And I've heard this saying, children either live up to or down to our beliefs about them. And I think that applies to everyone, not just children.
Sure.
Right? And so I also feel like we're all disabled to some degree. I think we live kind of in a non-perfect society yet.
Yes.
And everyone's just doing their best, to be a meaningful contributor. And I love children, and I really do believe they are the masters of the heart.
Yeah.
And we can learn so much from them.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah. You're giving me some really great ideas I'm going to brainstorm on for the future.
I'm feeling impressed to share a story with you.
Yes.
So the Sparkler Princess, her persona represents divine love. Okay. And it's not like she's a Disney princess or, what people's idea of what is a princess. The Sparkler Princess is here to share that divine love and to help the children to recognize that within themselves and to teach them about self-love, which is so, so important. Well, I had the opportunity to go as the Sparkler Princess to a women's shelter. And in the women's shelter, there were several women along with their children. And I put on a program there where we put on our imagination classes and we imagined different things. And I read them my story. And we talked about emotion, and how sometimes we go through things in life and we bury emotion within our psyche. And if that emotion doesn't get dealt with, it can show up in other ways within our body.
Yeah.
And with these children obviously having suffered some form of abuse, and even the women, I felt it very important to broach that topic. And so I had an exercise where I gave all of them a balloon. And we talked about what it feels like in your body when you're feeling sad or when you're feeling angry. And I invited all of them to think of a time that they felt sad or angry or anxious, whatever the feeling was. And then I invited all of them to blow that emotion into the balloon. And there was quite a number of children, probably 30.
Wow.
And the parents wanted to participate too. I just saw big kids. The adults were just big kids, and they had their imagination glasses on, and they were blowing into the balloon. And I basically said, everyone blow up your balloons, blow the emotion out of your tummies. And on the count of 3, we're going to let it go. And so we counted to 3 all together, and everyone let their balloon go, and everyone cheered. And then I noticed in the middle of the crowd, a little boy about 4 years old, and he was crying. He said, I can't blow up my balloon. And I said, oh, it's okay. Just come up here and I'll help you. I'll blow it up for you. You just tell me how much. So he came up and I stood him up on a platform and said, you're now on the stage of life. And these people here are here to support you. And so I blew up the balloon and I said, what are you feeling in your tummy? I'm angry. I'm angry. And I said, okay, you tell me how much to blow into the balloon. So I blew it up a little bit on purpose. He said, more. And I said, okay, blew it up a little bit more. I said, is that okay? No, more. So blew it up more. And he said, and then I'm like, is that okay? And he's like, no, more. And I blew it up more. And I'm thinking to myself, I hope he doesn't, like, if I blow this up anymore, it's going to bust. I blew it up to, there was about maybe that much left on the end of the spout, And he said, and then I'm like, about that? And he's like, I'm like, how much? And he spread his arms out. That much. And so I was holding the balloon, and he thought I was going to let it go. And he became frantic. He said, oh, no, I want to let it go. Oh. And I said, oh, you get to let it go. So I passed it to him ever so carefully, put his fingers along the clasp so and let go. And I said, okay, kids, on the count of 3, we're going to count, and he's going to let it go. Now, you have to understand, this little boy, when he stood there, his countenance just, you could feel it was heavy. His eyes were heavy. His whole appearance was just heavy.
Yeah. And
so I said, okay, 1, 2, 3. And he let it go, and everyone cheered. And he went from being heavy to just smiling, grinning from ear to ear. His eyes were sparkling, and it was the most magical moment for all of us.
I love that.
Magical moment for all of us. And so I share that story because as we help children to identify that, their thoughts, their words, their actions, the emotion in their bodies, need to be talked about like you do with your own children. It can be such a powerful, powerful thing, not only for them, but for all of us.
Yeah, it's so true. When my daughter was really little and when they're toddlers, and I was, oh, who do you love? Oh, I love grandma. I love dad, blah, blah, blah. And I always told her, now, when you grow up, I always want you to love yourself first. You always say, no matter what, no matter if it's grandma or dad or somebody says, oh, you don't love me more. No, I love myself first. Then I can love others. And I didn't have that as a
Mm.
child. And as you know, it grew for me as an adult. And so I recognized how important it was that I fostered that in her. And I don't mean it to come across as like, selfishly, like she should think of herself only. But as far as self love and self confidence, she should come first. And we all should come first in our own minds to ourselves. But that's not how we're raised. We're not raised to look at ourselves and love ourselves and, self. We're raised to be selfless. And then that diminishes the self. And so I think it's just such a cool thing, that she does that now.
I love that. A couple of things come to mind as you share that. There was someone that once said, love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can have that self-love, which society might think as selfish because we've been conditioned to think that way.
Exactly.
If we can have that self-love, we're in a much better position to give that love to others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And imagine if everyone had that within them. Everyone had that self-love. What a beautiful world this would be.
Mm-hmm. That's certainly true.
And there's an author I know of. His name is Dominique Flippin, and he wrote a book called I Love Myself Today.
Oh.
And on my website, the Sparkler Princess actually reads that story to the children. I Love Myself Today. And it's a beautiful book. It's just got such a powerful message about loving yourself and not letting the external world kind of, take that away from you.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a beautiful book. And so I highly recommend his book. Yeah. Love Myself Today. You can find that on Amazon as well. And any book that is going to empower the minds and hearts of children, hey, I am behind it 100%.
That's for sure. That's for sure. It's been such an honor and a pleasure connecting with you. I'm sure that we could just keep going on. So I'm glad that we have another episode coming up, and I'm so excited that we'll be able to dive even deeper into that one. So that'll be really fantastic. Yes. And I'm really looking forward to doing that with you again. So thank you so much for your time today. Before we go, will you please tell us your website and where we can find the spectacular book and how we can support you more?
Okay, the website is sparklerprincess.com. Okay. And on there we have Sparkler TV. And on Sparkler TV, we have lots of fun videos for kids to watch that are all designed to empower their minds and hearts. Now, I do have a feathered friend, Bluey, that I want to give a shout out to.
Yes.
Because my feathered friend, Bluey, actually gets in costume. And this is a costume we designed ourselves. That was a miracle in and of itself because I've been so high school, so I have no idea how that even happened.
I'll send my daughter over.
Sew too, not only draw but sew. But my feathered friend Bluey is actually my husband.
Oh, that's great.
And so we are co-conspirators to change the world.
I love it.
And he is amazing. He is my amazing partner, friend, playmate.
Yes.
And we so much fun together. So if you want to see Bluey play drums,
okay,
you definitely want to check out Sparkler TV. So it's sparklerprincess.com. And anything's possible, anything goes, you can find on Amazon. And I think I have a link on my website to that as well. And we got some really big things happening for us that have kind of popped up out of nowhere for this year. And I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag yet, but let's just say you haven't seen the last of us.
Well, I hope that you keep us in the loop and let us know so that I can help promote all of your fun things and events that if you have coming up, I'd just love to share. So please always feel free to send me extra links to help share. So happy to do that.
Thank you. And give love to your children.
Oh, thanks.
I feel their hearts. I have this thing where I can just feel, and I feel their hearts. And you are very, very blessed, and they are very, very blessed to have you.
Thank you. I agree. I feel the same way, and I think a lot of the same lines, like a great partner, husband, best friend. He does all my setup. He sets all of this up for me and makes sure that I'm all ready to go and do my hair, and I come in and it's all beautiful. So
Does he do your hair too?
no, I do my own hair. It's just while I'm getting ready. Yeah, right. Did you curl my hair down? I'm gonna have to ask him to do that. See if he does. That's really getting into it, right? No,
Yeah.
so funny. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to our next conversation. So, and we will definitely be in touch.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi, and thanks for joining the SJ Child Show. The SJ Child Show brings value to families through education and resources. But the SJ Child Show isn't just about me. It's about us as a community. Join me as we help educate and support our community, help bring kindness and love and inclusion to all. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and watch. I really appreciate all the support from all of the viewers and listeners, and I just want to let you know I want you to join me on this journey. Come and follow my social media, and let's do this together. Enjoy the show. Introducing Autism Vehicle Home Safety Kits, Emergency Responder, alert stickers, personal profiles with autism needs and a communication board, masks and earplugs, keeping families and emergency responders educated and safe. Get yours today at sjchilds.org. Helping autism families impact their child's developmental milestones through home relocation, community resources, and home designs. For every 3 homes Natalie Castro sells, she funds and designs a sensory room for a community center servicing individuals with autism. She volunteers to coach law enforcement, first responders, and ER nurses how to have a positive experience for individuals on the autism spectrum. The SJ Child Show, produced by SJ sjchildsllc. Thanks to all my viewers and listeners for your continued love and support. And thank you to the guests of the SJ Child Show. It's been an honor to have you on the show. Thank you to everyone who continues to support me. Go to my social media and let's build this community together through kindness, compassion, and education for others.